there. This is Julie Ho with Vegetarians and Meat Lovers, Split Table Recipes. And I have another amazing interview for you guys. I'm so excited to talk with this person. She is amazing. And we just found out we're from the same state, which is really cool. And, small world, right? It's a crazy thing. But I would like to introduce you to Beth Baumgartner. Now, did I say your name right?
You did?
Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
I'm so excited to chat with you and talk about doing your journey, how you got there. And so we're going to start off with, I would love for you to tell us what you blog about and what your cookbook is about.
I blog all about dessert recipes. That's just kind of like what I've always loved. So I don't do any dinner recipes. So it's just desserts or sweet things. And out of my love for that, I decided to write a cookbook all about muffins. And some people are like, well, why did you pick muffins? And I feel like muffins are an anytime food. You can eat them for breakfast, for
Yeah.
snack, for lunch, pair them with ice cream and eat them for dessert. So I don't know. I just have like a passion for muffins. So that's what I wrote my cookbook about.
Yeah, I feel like that's like a snack too. Like, and my kids just will love it as a snack. I mean, there is no like daytime, norm for muffins. It's any time of day.
I agree. That's why they're the best.
They are. And they're very versatile too. Like you can do a lot of different things. And one thing I like to do too, just even if I'm not creating a recipe, is like taking a box and like adding something to it, like adding blueberries to a blueberry muffin. I mean, it maybe is a little bit cheating, but I like to do that for, it's a way to like create new things as well. But
Yep.
so do you
Yeah.
tend to do like creation from scratch, or do you do any of that kind of stuff where you incorporate a little bit of packaged food? Or are you more just
Everything's from scratch in the
Mhm.
book.
Yeah.
So yeah, really it's 30 classic muffin recipes is what the book is all about. So you got your blueberry, your chocolate chip, a coffee cake, pretty much every muffin that you would kind of think as a classic. I have got it in the book.
That's very cool. And now, so how many times do you do a recipe before you say, okay, it's good. I'm going to use it. I'm going to publish it. It's ready.
Okay, it's so funny that you asked that because I was thinking over that question, and some recipes I can get in like 3 or 4 tries. But when I was testing my lemon poppy seed muffins, I think it took 12 batches. So it's like some take a lot longer than you anticipate. So it really just depends. But yeah, the lemon poppy seed ones, I took weeks. And I just remember talking about it on Instagram. I was like, this is batch number 18. And I was just working on perfecting the flavor and getting that nice high dome. And that one took a while.
Right. So then what's the final decider? Is it you? Do you have other people taste it? Are you like, this is the best? Do you go by appearance, taste, or all the above?
It's all the above, right? I mean,
Mm.
I feel like with your eyes first. So
I like that.
my book is all about bakery style muffins. So muffins that have really large dome tops. So that's what I was going for. Every muffin needed to have a really large dome top, but it also needs to taste amazing and be moist and, and have that classic, whatever muffin I'm testing, it has to have that classic flavor.
Sure. So what brought you to create the blog? Like, I know you said you like to make desserts. Was like in your mind when you're like, I should make a blog. I should do this.
I totally stumbled into it. I got started in 2012. I feel like right on the cusp of like when blogging, people
Mm,
weren't sure like what that was. So
yeah. Yeah.
um my husband and I, we actually graduated from college, we got married, and then we moved out of state all in one summer. So we moved from Minnesota to Illinois, and I started a blog as a way to keep in touch with our family back in Minnesota. So
Got it.
initially I was just writing about like what was going on in our new neighborhood and just, being newlyweds and stuff like that. And
Mhm.
now that I was married, I had to figure out how to cook for somebody else. And so kind of going through the process of like learning how to cook and learning how to bake. And eventually I decided that I really just loved sharing dessert recipes. So that's where I switched my focus into just sharing dessert recipes on my site. And it was a hobby. I never anticipated it to become my full-time job. And I feel like it was really cool how it really grew. And yeah, now I'm able to do it full time. So that's kind of like the story of how it started. And that's why it's called the First Year Blog, because I started it during our first year of marriage.
That was going to be my next question. That's really fun. And so, yeah, it's an interesting, unusual name, but yeah, people are probably like, what does that mean? Like, what does that really refer to? Is that the first year of blogging? No, first year of your marriage, where you were learning to.
Yeah. And I never thought it was going to turn into what it is today. I probably would have
Mhm.
picked a different name if I would have known, like it was going to grow so large, but it's really special to have that memory.
It is. And once you've got it down as a name and a brand, it's almost dumb to change it because people know you for that. So if yeah, you're right. Once it's starting to be known, you really can't change it because people aren't gonna remember your change. They're gonna be like, oh, where'd this person go?
Yeah, I agree.
So it makes it a little bit of a challenge. And so of all the desserts, what was your reason for picking muffins?
Kind of going back to what I said earlier, it's just like I've always had like a love for muffins because you can eat them any time of the day.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I knew if I was going to write a cookbook, I needed to write something that I needed a topic that I was really passionate about.
Yeah.
And that was just the one that I was like, okay, I'm really passionate about muffins. I don't have any friends who've written cookbooks about muffins. So I also wanted to be like not stepping on anybody else's toes. So I was like, okay, muffins is
Mhm.
my thing. And it's been really cool to how as I was making the cookbook, I was sharing a lot of sneak peeks and behind the scenes with my audience on Instagram. And it's like I
Mm.
found this like muffin tribe. Like there's other
Nice.
people out there that love muffins as much as I do. And it's been cool to find that community.
That's very cool. And so, did you have to learn how to take pictures? And did you take pictures for the cookbook?
So I've been doing my own food photography since 2012 when I started my website. So I've
Mhm.
had a lot of practice and a lot of skill with food photography. And so I did take all my own photos for the book. And the photography
Nice.
is actually one of my favorite parts. So I don't think I'll ever give that part up because it helps me feel so creative.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can do, right? And all the props you can bring in, the different areas you can do it. I totally agree. And it's a fun part of it. Like some of the parts can be arduous to write a book, but that's a fun part.
It is. It was really fun. Like, I was shooting my fall muffins for the book back in July, and it's so hot outside, but I was like, channel these fall vibes. So I found some dead leaves in my backyard
Oh yeah.
to add in, to my propping, and it just ended up it really like when you look at the photo, you're like, wow, that really brings me into fall. So it was really fun.
And I find it a challenge the different seasons. Like, say you're making something in the winter. I've even gone outside, which is so funny, snow, and so you have the same thing. You have the seasons going on that's going to impact you. So, have you ever gone outside in winter to take food pictures, or do you pretty much stay in?
I never brought anything outside to photograph. I have artificial light, so we've got a
Yep.
little fake sun over here, which is really great.
Perfect. That's very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I like the natural light too. So sometimes I actually have gone outside and like put a tablecloth on a snow-covered table. But then you have got the whole thing of it might be uneven because of the snow, so it's a more of a challenge if you're gonna try to do something like that. And so is your book offered as an ebook and hardcover or paperback?
Yes, so it's a physical soft cover book, and then I also have the digital downloadable version available on my website as well.
Did you feel it was important to also create a hard copy versus just the ebook?
I did. Yeah. So my friend Carly, who blogs over at Cooking with Carly, kind of started this whole like self-publishing trend. And
Mhm.
I owe everything that I've learned about how to self-publish this book from Carly. And she has learned that she offers both. She offers physical copy and a digital copy. And the majority of people want the physical copy. So
Yeah.
kind of knew like, yep, I'm definitely going to offer a physical copy. I think there's just something about holding the book in your hands, like flipping the pages, looking at the pictures when you're, wanting to make a recipe. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of our society, I think we're used to not having a physical something in our hands sometimes. So I feel like sometimes
Right.
culture is like shifting back towards that.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like for myself when I'm doing it, I really like it in a form because number one, it's bigger. And when you're cooking something and you're referring back to something, it's better than looking at it on your little screen of your phone. It's just nice to have it big and open and right there. It's quick reference. You know, might be cooking, kids are asking me questions. I got dogs around. I'm like constantly getting distracted. So a physical book where it's a bigger print than on my phone is just more convenient and it is easier. And it is fun to hold a book. I know everything's going digital, but it is fun to hold a book and see it.
Yeah, I agree. There's just something about bringing the book with you into the kitchen.
Absolutely. And so, did you find it a challenge to create this book? And how did you decide on a number of recipes? That's the other thing. Like some recipes have 100 some books have 100 recipes. Some have, 20. There's such a wide range.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So, like I said, my friend Carly was such a huge help and a wealth of knowledge because she kind of paved the way for us in terms of finding a publisher and figuring out a good price point and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
I just decided I felt like, okay, 30 classic muffin recipes, that's a lot. That encompasses a wide variety. So hopefully it has everyone's favorite recipe in there. And I also had to take into consideration, the larger the book is, the more expensive the book will be, and then the
Yeah.
more expensive it is to ship. So I wanted to keep it within, a reasonable range.
So true. So true. And, you know, that's a good point because you don't want it to be so expensive to print that it drives the price of the book up that turns people off because you don't want that either.
Yep.
You want it to be it's part of making it appealing and attractive. So, what's your favorite recipe in the book? Do you have one or is that like way too hard to pick?
Okay, it definitely goes in seasons.
Mm,
So right
yeah.
now, because we're kind of at the tail end of blueberry season, I would probably say blueberry muffins.
Mm.
But if you asked me, probably back in March or April, I probably would have said lemon poppy seeds. So I feel like I'm like what season we're in.
Right, absolutely. This question just popped in my head. What's one of the weirdest ingredients you've decided to add to a muffin that actually worked?
Oh, I don't know. I don't really know if I have any weird ingredients in any of my recipes because they're really classic.
Yeah, sure.
Um, I have had some, readers ask for some bizarre things or, because sometimes people are like, oh, well, can I make this sugar-free and egg-free? Like,
Yeah.
well, I think we're getting into a different territory there.
Yeah. That's like a different like genre of cooking almost, like kind of specific, leaving things out or cooking for people with allergies or just even desire for their diets. But yeah, that's a whole different area. I agree. So, how did you choose your cover of your book? Like, that's a hard choice too, because you have all these amazing pictures. It's so hard to pick one, isn't it?
It is. So I think I'm trying to remember exactly how this went down. I was photographing my chocolate chip muffins because that's what's on my cover. It's a chocolate chip muffin. And when I was doing that photo shoot, I was like, okay, I'm going to take some pictures that I think would work really well as a cover for the book. So I didn't
Hmm.
know it at the time, but I kind of had it in my mind. I was like, okay, I think I knew that I wanted the title of my book to kind of be at the top, so I needed some free space. So I purposely put my muffins in the lower third of my camera. And so I didn't know exactly that I was like taking the cover photo until later. I mean, I kind of had a little bit of an idea, but the one that turned out that I'm using on the cover is absolutely stunning, and I think it's one of my favorite photos.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely very cool. Now, where can people find your book? We haven't talked about where people can find it.
My book is available on my website. So you can go to shop.thefirstyearblog.com and then you can purchase it. You can purchase either the physical copy or the digital downloadable version from my site.
And then obviously they get that automatically once they purchase the digital, it's just available, right?
Yes. Yep. The digital version is not on my website yet because we're doing the last
Mm.
round of edits on the book. So once we
Oh, got it.
solidify that, like, this is the final version, I will upload the digital version, be available.
What's your target date for publication?
So I've been taking pre-orders for the physical copy, and the plan is to mail out the physical copies sometime in September. So right, that gives me about a 4 week, range, but we're very close. I just got the second draft back last week, and there were
Mm.
some tweaks and corrections. So
Yep.
this week we are finalizing, I think, which was hopefully, the last version of the cookbook. So I'm hoping next week we're going to be able to send it to the publisher to order all the pre-order books.
Very nice. And it really takes a long time, doesn't it? I mean, first of all, it takes a long time to create all these recipes. Like we're talking months. And then you write it and then all the editing. It really is a long, involved process, isn't it?
It is. The editing has been longer than I was expecting. And I have an
Mhm.
editor who's helping me. And then also my husband is another set of eyeballs. So that's very helpful to
Yeah.
have their feedback.
Does he get to be your taste tester?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And we send a lot of muffins to his coworkers and also to
Oh,
daycare. So yeah, a lot of
yes.
people have enjoyed a lot of muffins.
Yes, I'm sure your child gets to get in on that too.
Yeah, she's learned to love muffins.
That's really fun. She'll probably always think of that, you know. How is she? Do you share how old she is or no?
Yeah, I have a daughter. Her name is Remy, and she's 2.
Okay. I was gonna say maybe she's gonna remember the whole muffin thing, but it's hard to say if they'll remember at that age, you know, and going forward if they'll remember the whole eating lots of muffins things that mom made.
And it's funny because when people ask her, like, what does your mama do? She says, Mama's a baker. Like, I
Oh,
suppose she just thinks I just bake all day.
you don't do anything else. You just make the food, right?
Yep.
Makes it sound so simplified, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It's cute
exactly.
though. So what are you working on now? Other
Right
than that, or are you are
now.
doing more things now? Do you like have you been doing your blog alongside this cookbook? Yeah.
Yes. So I've been keeping up with the blog as I've been working on the cookbook. And now that we're in the final stages of the cookbook, I feel like it's freeing up a little bit more of my time to go back to creating content for my website. So
Hmm.
I actually this week I'm working on shooting 7 different types of Halloween
Ooh.
cupcakes.
Oh wow, that's 7. That's a lot.
Halloween is my favorite holiday. So I was like, I'm going to go big this year. I'm going to do 7 Halloween cupcakes.
Exactly. And isn't it how so funny how you have to do it so far ahead of time? Like it's like, you know, it's not really that far ahead of time, but other people aren't really thinking Halloween yet. But you have to make the
Exactly.
content so it's there when they are thinking about it.
I'm like, what am I going to do with all these cupcakes when I'm done with them? Like, should I bring them to daycare or are people going to think I'm weird? But you know, at this point, I think I've conditioned people to understand that, like, I work, about 2 months ahead of time.
Right. And kids love Halloween too. So none of them are going to complain. They just love cupcakes. So they're not going to complain.
That's true. Yep.
They're probably like, yes, this is awesome. My kids, when they were younger too, they'd want to think about Halloween more. There was no like paring down Halloween. It's like bigger, bigger. Let's think about it now, you know?
Yep. I'm already thinking about our Halloween costumes this year. That's how much I love Halloween.
That's so fun. Do you think you'll ever create another cookbook? And do you have an idea of what it might potentially be?
There have been some of my followers on Instagram asking if I was going to create another book. I don't know. I've only briefly thought about it. There's nothing in the works. I think I kind of want to see like how this first book is received and then kind of
Mhm.
go from there. Because some people were like, oh, maybe you should do a second muffin book.
Right.
I don't know. So we'll see. I'm not really sure if there's plans for a second book.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it and see how it goes, and then that can help you formulate. Okay, I'm going to do this, or next I'm going to do that, because you still have the blog that you're posting to anyway. So it's not like you're not creating any new content, even if you didn't do another book.
Right. Yep. It's just, yeah, all the content's now going on the blog.
So which social media sites do you tend to post your new stuff to, your new content?
So I am posting new content to Instagram and Facebook and also to Pinterest.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I love Instagram. I feel like I've really built like a special community over there.
That's good. Now, what is your handle? Is it the same across all of those
My
platforms?
Instagram handle is Beth underscore the first year.
Okay.
And then on Facebook, I think it's the first year blog.
And have you been posting about your cookbook on those as well? I mean, because that's a great, especially I think Pinterest too. Pinterest can take a while to grow on, but it's a great platform, especially for food because it's so visual, you know?
Yes, there are so many platforms to keep up with when you're
I
trying to
know.
promote a cookbook. Yeah, I've been trying to use them all to just, let people know about this cookbook. And I'm really trying to establish myself as a muffin expert. So if people have, questions about muffins or if people are looking for really good muffin recipes, I'm hoping that they'll remember me and see me as a muffin expert and someone that they can trust.
Oh, absolutely. And so what's your website? We haven't really actually defined that yet.
Yeah, my website is thefirstyearblog.com.
Very nice. And that's quite a journey just to learn to do as well, isn't it? Just to
Oh, yeah. And blogging has changed so much since I started.
Yeah, it's always changing. Like I feel like there's always something new you have to consider or change, or it's never ending with the changes.
I agree. I think people don't realize that even though I might publish a recipe, today, I'll probably have to edit it again in a year because things change, SEO changes, formatting changes, stuff like that. You're always going back and touching that old content and making it fresh and mm, adding more helpful information for the reader.
Right. Oh, absolutely. So did you find having a child changed how you blog in your process?
I think at the beginning, yes. Now that we're in like a regular schedule and Remy goes to daycare full time, I'm able to treat it again, like a full-time job. Um, yeah, and I guess when you have a kid, you have better work-life balance. I would say, you kind of have a hard stop at the end of the day instead of letting your work drag over into, your personal life.
Yeah, it can be a challenge working from home because you have to, yeah, you do have to be like, okay, I know I need to do this, but now my daughter's home, right? Like so then you have to like switch. But it's harder because you're not leaving an office. You're still at your office technically, right? So it can be hard.
Yes, very true. I try and leave my computer in my office, my home office, but yeah, it's hard to turn off your brain for sure.
Oh, it is. And sometimes I'll be like, oh, I could just do this one little quick thing. And sometimes you have to, but yeah, it's so easy to get pulled back in if you let yourself. So you have to be you
Yep,
have
I
to
agree.
be mindful. So does she like get involved and get excited when you take pictures, or does she just not pay attention yet at this age?
That's it's funny that you ask about pictures because I don't think she really sees me take a lot of pictures
Oh,
because
okay.
primarily that part I do while she's at daycare, but she
Sure.
does see me do a lot of baking. And whenever
Mm.
I'm pulling out the flour, she's always like, Mama, I want to measure flour. And like,
Oh yeah.
I give her her own little separate bowl to like measure her
Yes.
flour in. And she just loves scooping ingredients back and forth. Oh, and she loves the rolling pin. So it's been
Oh
really
yeah.
fun to have her more hands-on in the kitchen, even if she's creating her own little like side recipe instead of actually helping me with mine. We just like to do it together, and that's been really fun.
Oh, for sure. That's great memories. And she'll probably be really excited when she sees the actual physical book because for her, that'll be more tangible. Like, oh, mommy made this. Mommy made this book.
Yep. Yeah. I think she'll be really excited to see it.
Then maybe she'll really realize you don't just bake, you make books.
Yeah. It's so like what happens inside of her little brain? Like, what does she think?
Exactly. That's so cute. They're so curious. My boys were like that too. None of them like a couple of them do like to cook, but they were when they were little, they love to play in the kitchen too. Just play with flour, play with water, make experiments. They just kind of like to mess around. So it's a great playground for children for sure. But you got to know you're going to have a mess.
Yeah. My husband does not like the messy activities, but I'm always like, oh, it's totally fine. We'll just get out the vacuum. And like they have so much fun with the messy activities.
Oh, they totally do. They just have a blast. And I think it's so good for them too to like feel things with their hands because that's a part of learning too to feel what things feel like. What does flour feel like? What does sugar feel like? It's just a physical part of our world and it helps them grow and think.
Remy's going through this stage right now where she wants to like taste everything, like, or she wants to like smell all the spices, but then she thinks that she can like taste them. And like we've been trying to tell her like that, like you have to use that on something. It might not taste as good just by itself, but like, yeah, she wants to taste the flour and the cornstarch. I'm like, I let her do it. And she just learns from it.
It's true because they're so concentrated, but kids don't understand that. Oh, cinnamon. I like cinnamon. I might like to just eat a whole spoonful of cinnamon. No.
Right.
It's kind of cute, actually. So, what is one of the best things that you've learned while on your current journey?
I guess I learned that I am like capable of way more than I thought.
Oh, that's a good answer. I like that.
I just never saw myself as a small business owner,
Mhm.
running my own business. And yeah, I think I've learned that I'm way more capable and have a lot more skills than I thought I did.
That's really cool. I love that realization. That's a great thing. And you'll continue to build on that the more you make too.
Yep.
Yeah. Very cool. That's a great answer. I really like that. So what is something that we talked about sharing with your child. What is something that you would like to share with her? Do you share other cooking with her, or do you kind of focus more on baking with her at this point?
So her dad is a really good cook. So I feel like he kind of gets to introduce her to like how to saute things. And like right now she's learning how to cut things with a plastic knife. And so
Oh
I feel
yeah,
like she's getting like really good exposure from both of us. I mean, I
that's
can
great.
cook, but I'm not an expert in cooking. I feel like my husband is definitely better at that. So I think it's fun that she gets to learn from both of us and see both of us be in the kitchen, just kind of doing different things though.
Oh yeah, and that's great memories too that you guys will have, and as she gets older, she'll retain those memories as well. I always think it's so hard to think about when they're so little, like they don't are always going to remember everything until they hit around 3ish. I felt like then my boys really started to retain memories. They're all are older now. They're all teenagers. I have a 19-year-old, 17-year-old, and 14-year-old. But you know, they really start to. I found they really started to retain those memories starting around age 3. But all of the memories are fun, and you have them, and they can look back at pictures of themselves when they're 2.
Yes, and lots of videos. We take lots of videos.
Oh, yes, that's so much fun. So, what time of day do you work on recipes? Like for me, I feel like I do different things different times a day. Do you feel like you're more productive on certain things in the morning versus afternoon, that type of thing? What's kind of like your workflow?
This is a great question. And I feel like when I talk to other friends who are bloggers, we always talk about like, what's your process? Like, what's your schedule? And I find this kind of funny about myself because I am very like a scheduled type A person. But
Mhm.
when it comes to like my weekly work schedule, I'm kind of more like, okay, I'll go with the flow. Like I
Mm,
just so I don't have like specific days where I'm in the kitchen or specific days where I'm working on my computer. I just kind of like figure out maybe like what is the one thing that I need to get done for the week. And I kind of like tackle that first. So I don't know. I feel like I'm a flexible person when it comes to my work because I don't have a
mhm.
set schedule.
Sure. And one thing that's happened to me before, I'll start to make something and I'll be like, I should really write this down in case it turns out really good. But then it slows you down making it. Does that kind of thing happen to you too?
It definitely does. Yep. Or I'm like, oh, I'm making this right now. I'll take a reel for Instagram, but you forget like how much it slows you down. Yeah,
Oh, totally. And then I've been like that too, where I'm like, well, I'll just get a few pictures in case this turns out good. And then I redo it. So yeah, but it's never a bad thing to do, but it does totally slow you down.
it does. And then all the trips to the grocery store, like yesterday, it was last week, I was in the middle of testing something and I realized I did not have any eggs. So I'm like, oh, okay, well,
Oh,
one's preheated. Like I better run to the store to go get some eggs.
yep.
Yeah, there's always those like last minute trips.
Well, that's happened to me too, especially like my middle son. He likes to cook eggs himself, like to eat himself. So then I'll like go get eggs. I'm like, oh, he ate all the eggs. I have to go to the store.
Yep.
So when they get older, you get kind of that kind of thing too, where they swipe stuff that you were planning to
Oh,
use.
yeah.
It's great though. I think it's great that he's in the kitchen and he's making himself eggs. That's great. He's
That
always
is,
been one that's like to cook. So
that's awesome.
it is fun to see. The cleanup is not so much. She doesn't really love that part. So
Oh,
sometimes
no.
I come to a kitchen where there's like a egg pan in the sink.
Yep.
Oh, life with children, right? It's always an adventure every age they're at. That's what I have
Yes,
to say.
that's what I hear. Yeah, every age, there's things that are great and there's things that are challenging about every age.
Absolutely. But there's something great about every age too. Like mine are all pretty self-sufficient now. I don't have when they're younger, you're like have to be on them. Are they getting into something? They just need your assistance so much in a
Yeah.
different way. My friend used to always say, small kids, small problems, big kids, big problems, because when they're bigger, they can get into more trouble.
I have heard that before.
I think it's true. Not that they're still can be a challenge when they're younger, but when they're older, they can get into more, troubles. So
Mm.
it's definitely a challenge, but it's so much fun. So what advice do you have for other people that are thinking, hey, I want to make a cookbook. I would like to blog. I want to do this too. What's your best advice or any advice that you would give someone?
I think my advice would be to just start. I think a lot of
Mhm.
times we want to plan and we want to feel like we're ready. And I think sometimes you just have to take that first step. And sometimes that's going to feel scary, but I think that's you're proving to yourself that you want it and that you can do it. So I'd just say take that first step. And also, I think talking to other bloggers and talking to other people who've published cookbooks is really helpful. So using your community around you to help drive you in the right direction.
Yeah. And I, I also write fiction, and everybody always says you can't edit a blank page. You can't. You have to have something there to work with. So you just have to start.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you have nothing to work on.
that's so true.
Absolutely. So, one question I also wanted to ask that I forgot to say, where do you find your inspiration for recipes? Because I was talking to one of the people I talked to recently that I interviewed. She had a really interesting way. She would take old cookbooks, like really old cookbooks, and then she would modify the recipes. And that's how she got her inspiration frequently. Do you have something where you have inspiration hits you, or is it just kind of pop in your head? How does it work for you?
That's a great question. I did go through a cookbook phase, kind of like that, where I was checking out cookbooks from the library and like getting inspiration from those. And right now I'm adding a lot more like classic recipes to my website. So I'm just trying to make sure that I have a lot of those classic dishes that people might want to make, like coffee cake or a Texas sheet cake. So that's kind of what I'm going through right now, is just trying to be like, okay, what are a lot of those classic dessert recipes that people are looking for, and seeing if I've got them on my website.
Right. And then you just decide, okay, I'm going to do this because this is missing. I want to add this particular type of food or recipe. So, and on your blog, you pretty much do stick to the desserts then on the blog as well, that in addition to your cookbook?
Yes. So on my website, I would say like I have cakes, cupcakes, donuts. We've got pies, miscellaneous dessert recipes. So kind of like the fluff salads, if you know what those are.
I don't
Let's see.
think I do. Tell me what a fluff salad is.
Oh, I'm sure you know what a fluff salad is. So like, okay. So for example, like pistachio fluff salad, you
Oh,
take like
yeah.
marshmallows, and I think some of
Yes.
these like crushed pineapple. So I've got things like that that aren't necessarily, it might be more of like a side dish, but it's all
Yeah.
dessert. Anything that's sweet is what's on my website.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that could work as a dessert. Anything that could work as a dessert.
Yep.
Yeah. Because like crepes could be full of, either they could be a breakfast or they could be a dessert.
That's true. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so many different places you can go with desserts too. I feel like, anything from candy to cakes, pies, anything bread like, donuts. There's a huge range of things that you can go to. So that's definitely, and people love it.
You sure do. Yeah. And even when you think about seasonality, like, for Christmas coming up, you can add a lot of fudge recipes or no bake candy recipes. So I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm running out of things to make, but then other times I'm like, wow, there's so many options. Like I still have so much left that I could put on my website.
I know. And this is what happens to me a lot too. Like I have my specific recipes, like Christmas cookie recipes, for instance, that I love to make every year. And they're like recipes that my mom and grandma made. And so I have to make them every year. My kids love them. They're a part of our tradition, our culture, our family culture. But so like I'm making those, but then I'm wanting to make new things at the same time. So you've got this like war in yourself. Does this happen to you? You get this war in yourself. Oh, I want to try this. I want to make this new thing. But wait. What about that recipe for peanut blossoms? Like
Yeah. And so I've actually heard other dessert bloggers talk about how they really try and like front load their December content. Like, so for
mm,
example, they try and have all of the recipes that they're going to put on their own website, done by November. So by the time
mm,
December comes around, they can just focus on baking for fun and for their
yeah.
family instead of like having to bake, for your job and trying to juggle all that stuff. So that's something I'm going to try and do this year, is try and be a little bit more prepared for December and hopefully have all my recipes set so that I can do more baking for fun instead of trying to like balance, baking for fun and baking for my website.
Yeah, and the holidays do definitely do that to you. I mean, they kind of derail you a little bit that way because you want to do those fun things for your family. Because like my boys, they want those recipes again. They want those cookies. I do too. But yeah, but then it does cut into your time of cooking. So that's a great way to approach it, is to just do it up front and have it ready.
One of our family traditions is we make about 50 cookie tins every
Oh my
Christmas
goodness.
season. And I think it's one of my favorite things to do because I get to make like 9 different recipes and we
Yeah.
pack all these cookie tins and we give them, to friends and to
Mhm.
coworkers and to people at daycare. And it's a labor of love, but I think it's a really fun way to, well, first of all, be able to bake all those recipes and then just get
Mhm.
to share them with everybody.
Yeah, I always think of it this way too. Like food has memories. It carries memories and just looking at that food, making it and tasting it brings in a flood of memories. So it's not just you're not just eating a cookie, it's all those memories that are associated with that cookie that you're enjoying. So it's almost a full body and brain experience.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Now, this question I just thought of just popped in my head. What in your childhood prepared you for wanting to do this? Was there anybody that inspired you when you were young that were like, oh, I really like to cook, I like to bake? Did you have someone like that in your life?
So this is funny because both of my parents would say this too. Neither of them are good at cooking or baking. So I'm kind of like, it was really after I got married, I was like, okay, well, I better figure out like myself and how to feed another person. And so
Yeah.
I'm really all self-taught. And I think it's really fun to see like how far I've come and like how much confidence I've gained in the kitchen.
Oh, yeah. Cause it is definitely a skill. I mean, there is absolutely no doubt about it. It's a skill to learn how to cook and also to, time things right. And, some people don't realize you can't mix certain ingredients together or you have to do a certain order or it's not going to work.
Yep.
Like there's that whole aspect as well. This has been so amazing. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to mention or talk about or point out? Or again, tell us where we can find your content in your book, all that
Yeah,
good
so
stuff.
you can find all my recipes at thefirstyearblog.com. And then you can also find a link to my cookbook on that website too. And then if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's Beth_the first year.
So this has been so amazing. And your book sounds just wonderful and yummy. And good luck with it. I hope that your launch goes amazing. Oh, that's a question I have for you too. Are you doing special things for your launch? I mean, I know you have it on pre-sale, but are you doing any other special like promotions or just talking about it and getting the excitement up?
Some of my girlfriends were like, Beth, you should do a book tour. I was like,
Why
I don't,
not?
I mean, it could be fun. I'll have to think about it. I did reach out to my local newspaper, so they're going to write
Oh,
an
nice.
article about the book coming out. Other than that, I've been sharing about it a lot on Instagram, which is a great way to, to reach a huge population and people who don't live by me. So I think I've really built a
Exactly.
community of people who love muffins and are really excited to be able to get the book in their hands.
Right. And there probably aren't, like you said, there aren't a ton of cookbooks on muffins. So it's really good to pick an area that there's maybe a little bit of a hole in the market.
Mhm.
And, people will wait. Yeah, I love muffins too. I need this book.
Yeah. And I feel like once people see pictures of other people making my recipes, they're like,
Mhm.
wow, I've got to make those. So it's really like I use, like word of mouth. And I think, yeah, when other people, like, for example, if people are making my muffins, I always say, oh, send me a picture on Instagram because I like to reshare
Yeah.
them on my stories. And I think that gets people really excited to be like, oh, okay, I can make those if like another regular person made them.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And just the fact that someone wants to make them and likes it, that's just, gives validation for the recipe and the cookbook. And people like, this is good. Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. And I'm so glad you came on the show. This has been great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You have a good day.
You too.